Hi, it's the OGGM cat. Why am I showing the OGGM cat? Because we're about to talk to something that's sort of controversial. And before we talk about it, I thought I'd show the cat to sort of cool things off. And I've got something on my shirt. I don't know what it is. Probably food or paint or who knows. Anyways, we're going to talk about the letter that Steve Jackson Games posted on July 8th. Legion of Myth have already addressed this in a very long live stream they did last Friday. Venger Satanis has already addressed this. I'm pretty sure Jim over Grim Jim will if he hasn't already. Support me, Ginger Ale. I am suffering from a horrible allergy attack because of the weird weather. So if I sound all messed up, that's why. Anyways, the overturning of Roe v. Wade happened, as you know. And several gaming individuals have done stuff in response to it, whether they were for it or against it, whatever. That's not the point. We know that there's bundles. We know that game companies have come out and said stuff. So Steve Jackson Games released this thing. Now, I don't know if this is directly from Steve Jackson, if this is approved by his company, if this just is something he tossed out on his own. Gotta remember, when anything that Steve Jackson puts up, you gotta remember this is also the guy who does Illuminati and Munchkin and had the Secret Service raid his offices when they were making Gurps Cyberpunk. So, of course, Steve Jackson already has sort of a unusual relationship with the government. And if going on reading this, it starts out pretty normal and then gets weird. So, trigger warning. Obviously, this is addressing a very controversial topic. My political statement on Roe v. Wade being overturned isn't of any concern. I'm only bringing this up because it is from a game company. It is a game company that I have association with in the past, having once worked for them as a playtester and a writer. So, I guess I have a little bit more inside knowledge, though not much, as my inside knowledge comes from 1991, 1992. Anyways, yes, let's read this letter. Now, hindsight being 2020, just from looking at it, I can think, I get what you're trying to say here, but the way you said it, dude. There probably are better ways. Anyways, here we go. July 8th, 2022. Roe versus Wade. Remember, this is Steve Jackson Games, not me. And if this is a subject you find upsetting, you probably should stop listening. I know I am not alone in my anger when the Supreme Court ignored precedent, decency, and the majority voice and overturned Roe versus Wade. Okay, fine. For an inter-office memo, great. For a memo that only the shareholders could see, great. For something you're going to put up on your website, anybody can see, maybe not a great start. Now, that said, it wasn't easy to find this. It's on the Steve Jackson website, but it's hidden. Okay, so it's not like on the very first page. You got to go through a few layers to find it. In fact, I had to go through a few layers, and then somebody had to have somebody else show me where it was by reaching it from another site to find the exact spot where this letter is. But it's out there for the public, so okay. From all indications, our other civil rights are in for an equally hard time under the theophastist minority in power. I'm worried. Personally worried. I'm a white male, reasonably well-off, straight, and old, and I'm threatened by the Supreme Court. Okay? See, this is where it starts to get weird. Okay? I'm a cis, white, reasonably well-off male who feels threatened by the Supreme Court. Of all the civil liberties that the Supreme Court may or may not take away, you, sir, are the least likely to be affected. Okay, Roe versus Wade. You're a man. Gay marriage or trans or any of the other stuff. You are a straight white male who is upper middle class. So yeah. Okay, I guess you're trying to make yourself feel relevant? Look at me. I feel threatened as well. I can only imagine how others less privileged, ouch, less privileged must feel. What's next? A federal binary gender standard that just incidentally wipes out transgender treatment and gay marriage? Further criminalization of voter aid when the votes in questions are minorities? A national tithe? Don't laugh. I've heard these all mooted by people far closer to power than they ought to be. Again, this is the guy who makes Illuminati and Munchkin, and a guy who had his offices raided by the Secret Service in the 90s. So, yeah, how much of this is real and how much of this is him being, I'm the same guy who wrote Illuminati. All I can do as a citizen is vote, encourage others to vote, and give money to honest politicians. I could write letters, but what's the use? I'm in Central Texas. My congresstor is doing the right thing already. My governor, my attorney general, and both my U.S. senators are bought and paid for by the people who bought you Donald Trump and Fox News. Oosh, yeah, okay, again, dude. No matter what, this is getting Steve Jackson Games' attention again. All right, because anytime anybody mentions this article and talks about it, it's going to point attention to Steve Jackson Games. It doesn't matter if it's positive attention or negative attention. It's making Steve Jackson Games relevant in gaming again, which they haven't been for a while. And considering how relevant they used to be, Gurps was the number one contender for the throne of D&D. In fact, Gurps kicked D&D to the curb for a little bit. So no matter what, this is going to make Steve Jackson Games relevant again. What I can do with the support of the board of directors of Steve Jackson's Game is trying to help any of our staff who's affected by what is going down. Note, this is not an announcement of a simplistic, we will pay to get abortion patients out of the state policy. I think such a policies are good-hearted but flawed. I don't believe that a woman's choices should be between herself, her doctor, and the personal department. Okay, I don't believe that a woman's choices should be between herself, her doctor, and the personnel department. So what he does believe is the woman's choices should be between herself and the doctor, and the personnel department of the company shouldn't have any say in it whatsoever, which is absolutely right. And again, this goes with the whole, Wizards of the Coast Hasbro thing when they wrote their letter. What was Steve Jackson's Game's position on Roe v. Wade Thursday before it got overturned? Because Friday when it got overturned and Saturday when we're recovering from the after effects of the overturn, chances are whatever Steve Jackson Games take on Roe versus Wade before the overturn is going to be the same after the overturn. It's not like they're suddenly going to change. So if Steve Jackson Games was pro-choice on Thursday, chances are they were still pro-choice on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So this is kind of unnecessary because whatever policies they already had in place are still in place. So if your policy for that was take a couple sick days, then that probably hasn't changed. But yes, I agree that the woman's choices should be between herself and her doctor and the personnel department of where she works. It's not any of your concern. What I'm saying is what I am saying is that if and when our people or their families are hit by any manifestation of this new, bad, overreaching Supreme Court and other power grabbers that are threatening our country, will help. This might mean make it as easy as possible for someone to move out of state or out of country and keep their jobs here. We already telecommute a lot. We can do more. What are you, the Underground Railroad now? You're running the gauntlet to get people out of the country? So again, this is the guy who wrote Gurps Cyberpunk. This is the guy who wrote Illuminati and Munchkin. This is the guy whose offices were raided by the Secret Service. So how much of this is real? How much is this of him, taking things to the furthest extreme to see if he can, to poke the bear? I don't know. As if this was even if this was an inter-office menu, it could have been written better. It is kind of cringy. Helping someone affected by one of the mass shootings that the right and the court seem to be fostering out of sheer vicious perversity. So I guess he's saying he's pro-gun control, and he feels that the right is somehow fostering this viciousness in all these shootings. Okay, again, helping someone accused under a bounty hunter law, helping someone accused of a voting offense just for trying to vote, and yes, helping someone travel to a decently right-respecting jurisdiction for a personal reason. And I don't have to know the details myself. If someone can bring themselves to chat with any member of the board, those details can stop there. You just said it wasn't the board's positioned. So you will help somebody travel out of Texas to a state where abortion is legal still to get an abortion, but you don't want to know about the abortion because what goes on between a woman and her doctor is none of your concern. You'll just say, well, whatever our policy was then, it's still our policy. So if you need to take some time off for personal reasons, we'll support that. And if you need a little travel money to help you get to the doctors, well, I mean, that's within the budget. We'll just take it out of your paid vacation days. We are also making a donation to the Lilith Fund. I don't know what that is. Let's find out. What is the Lilith Fund? The Lilith Fund helps people pay for an abortion when they cannot afford it. Okay, so it's a company that supports Planned Parenthood and stuff like that. We are also making a donation to the Lilith Fund, and because we are who we are, we're doing a t-shirt, like the Ukraine shirt. It will be sold as a POD. All the proceeds will go to the Lilith Fund. The search will feature Flower, our female face, but it will not have Munchkin branding or game rules. Details like how to buy will follow. Wear it to demand freedom. Steve Jackson, July 8th, 2022. So that's the letter. I'll post the link. Okay, here's my first. Again, my political point of view isn't the point here. This is Steve Jackson Games. It somewhat affects the gaming industry. It's a company that I'm vaguely associated with, so that's the only reason why I'm talking about it. That said, no matter what, hey, you found a way to draw attention to Steve Jackson Games. So considering that you haven't been relevant for a while, this makes you relevant. This makes you in the public eye. Doesn't matter whether we agree or disagree with your political statement. You're making it well known, which is going to draw attention to you, which is a good thing for your brand. There are probably better ways to have written this letter, okay? It seems to be going out of its way with paranoia and cringeness and poking the bear, where there's just a better way to say, whatever our policy was X, our policy is still X. We have things in place to take care of you should you need to take time off for a medical issue. We don't need to know. Whatever goes on between you and your doctor is between you and your doctor. The personnel department, we don't, whatever. We only need to know as much as you need to tell us in order for us to approve the time off. And if you have some vacation days, great. If not, unpaid time off for medical emergency, that's already written into our company. Okay? If that was Steve Jackson's Games position before the overturn, then I'm going to guess that's going to remain their position after the overturn, which means there's really no reason to make this letter otherwise, other than to say, hey, we support you and we're going to continue to support you with the way we were supporting you before. I know I talk with my eyes closed sometimes because it helps me think. Anything other than that, if you're going to make it public like this, even though, yes, it was hidden. So I don't know how public he wanted to make this because it's on the website. You can find it. It's just not right away where someplace you would see it first off. It's buried under some layers. It should have been in an interoffice menu memo. It should not have probably been written the way it is. It's definitely an attention grab. It's definitely being controversial for the sake of being controversial. It's definitely him expressing his personal opinions, very much tripping into the whole paranoia. And again, what I think politically doesn't matter. I'm only talking about this as it affects me as a gamer and how it affects the gaming industry and how it affects the way gaming companies address the public and whether they should or not address the public. And, anytime we've seen that anytime a gaming company tries to get involved in a socio-political debate, it ends up backfiring. We could look at Wizards of the Coast's attempt to address racism and homophobia at the gaming table. On paper, sure, I guess that was a good idea. But on the other hand, that's not your job, Wizards of the Coast. Your job is to make D&D and sell D&D and make money for Hasbro. Other than that, no, it is not your job to address racism and homophobia in terms of Dungeons & Dragons. But it's a good idea. There are probably ways to have done it better than the way you did, but instead of any good or decent idea, the way Wizards of the Coast addressed racism and homophobia at the D&D table was awful and made things very ugly. This is the same thing. This is, there are better ways to have said what you want to say, especially if it's an inter-office memo. If it's a statement you want to make to the public on behalf of the company, there's probably a better way to say this. On paper, hey, we support your right to do whatever you want to do. Sure, okay, if that's a part of the politics of your company and it's always been there, then we're going to assume that that's not going to change. And that's okay. That's the politics of your company. Does it really affect me? Do I really care? No. Because I have nothing invested in the politics of Steve Jackson Games other than, hey, I would love to see Gurps be a contender again. But still, good idea. Just horrible way to go about doing it. There are probably better ways to have said this without sounding like a paranoid conspiracy. But again, this is a guy who's made a large portion of his income off of paranoid conspiracies. I mean, this is the guy who wrote the Illuminati game and Munchkin and Gurps Cyberpunk and Gurps Espionage, and he's made a lot of history of poking that political bear and poking fun of conspiracies. This is a guy who was the target of an investigation and had his offices raided by the Secret Service. So, yeah, maybe he does have reason to be paranoid, and maybe he is just, embellishing the image he's already created for himself as the guy who, created Illuminati, the board card game, and who bought Munchkin and has done everything with Munchkin, and the Gurps Cyberpunk guy. So we know companies are going to respond to this. We've seen it in the past. Should they? I'm going to say the same thing about this that I did about Hasbro. Hasbro's job is not to be pro-choice or pro-life. Hasbro's job is to be pro-money and pro-tabletop role-playing game hobby. Steve Jackson Games, your job is to not be pro-life or pro-choice. Your job is to be pro-money, pro-tabletop role-playing games, pro-making your product relevant in the year 2022. But yes, this does get you attention. So no matter what else comes out of this, you have managed to make yourself relevant, at least briefly, in the tabletop role-playing game sphere. So good on you. Could this letter have been written better? Yes. Is this important in the great scheme of things? Sort of. What do I think about Roe v. Wade? Doesn't matter. Not the point. All right, that's way too much talk about this. There's a link down below. I'm probably going to regret posting this, but I knew I had to because of reasons that I've already said. If you appreciate this content, let me know. If you have anything you want to talk about regarding this situation, let you know. If you found this topic upsetting, I apologize, but obviously it's a controversial topic that is affecting every aspect of our lives right now. Again, if you want to talk about my personal politics, I'm happy to make a separate page about that, but that's not the point of this page. I'm not going to finger wave or say I'm pro or anti or whatever. I'm not going to condemn anybody else for their politics. I'm here to talk about gaming. This affects gaming. This affects something we're going to see gaming companies continue to do. There's a good way to do it, and there's a bad way to do it. We know Wizards of the Coast tried and was awful. Here's Steve Jackson Games trying. And yeah, no, wow. We know that I'm pretty liberal, and even I'm like, dude, There's better ways to write that. Yikes. But what do I know? Comment down below. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Help me hit 1,000 subs by, I don't know, December. And until then, stay safe, stay sane, stay happy, stay hydrated, and above all, stay off my land, you damn kids!